Good evening and welcome to Horizonte, a show that takes a look at current issues through a Hispanic lens. I'm your host, Catherine Anaya. Dia de los Muertos is a Mexican day to remember and honor those who have passed on in a joyous manner. It's a holiday that is gaining in popularity in the U.S. Award-winning picture book artist Selena Gonzalez has a new book out that shows us how Dia de los Muertos traditions can honor pets. Her new book, Remembering, tells the story of a family that commemorates a beloved dog that has passed. Here to talk more about the inspiration behind it is Selena Gonzalez. Nice to have you here. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
Well, this is such a beautiful book. I just love it. And I love the fact that I think pretty much anyone can relate to it because we've either lost a pet or, will at some point. I have a dog. I think about it. It makes me so emotional. What inspired you to merge the topic of losing a pet with Dia de los Muertos? Because I've never seen the two really written about.
Yeah, so this is my third book that I've created with my good friend, Adriana M. Garcia. We both live in Yanaguana in San Antonio, and we have enjoyed creating a couple of picture books together. After our first picture book came out, it received a lot of success and we were having a great year and making a living as independent artists. And I lost my cat, Buju, at that time. I had her for 17 years. She was my best pet friend, as I would call her. And then Adriana lost her dog, Simon, shortly after 14 years of friendship. So we were both, celebrating these individual successes, personal successes in our art, and then also had these hard losses. So when we were looking at what story to tell next, that was something that came up. I built an ofrenda for my cat outside, and I cried, had a good cry, and I knew she was grieving Simon more recently, and so I wrote it as a poem to console my friend and my own heart. Quite often, pet loss is the first real loss that a child will experience, and children are big part of the audience for picture books. I do think the books are for everyone. But as far as the tradition, depending on what part you're from or where your family traditions are, it's Dia de Muertos is a 2-day event, and the first day quite often is reserved for the innocents. Dia de los Inocentes or los Angelitos, right? The angels are the innocents, and so sometimes that means children, people who haven't made it into adulthood, and it also means pets. So those innocent, pure spirits, that unconditional love. So that's where that idea comes from.
It's so beautiful. I mean, really just a beautiful, moving book. Can you explain to people who aren't familiar with the traditions how ofrendas or offerings help us process the grief and really find the joy in the person or the pet that has moved on? How that can help, especially in this book particularly, a child who may not necessarily understand how to process all of those emotions.
Well, I've long felt that Dia de Muertos and the customs behind it is one of the best gifts that the indigenous Mexican culture has to offer humanity at large, because death is something that we all face, and I feel like quite often in our Western or American society, we fear it and we run from it, and we're afraid to talk about it, and we're afraid to talk to children about it. But it's a part of the bigger circle. It's a part of that cycle, and so I love that comfort with death, right? That acknowledgement that it's a part of life, and the tradition that has a lot of joyous elements, and it has this welcoming component where we welcome back the spirits of our loved ones, if only for that 2-day celebration. So it's beautifully drawn out in the illustrations that Adriana provided. And then in the back of the book, there's an invitation to build your own ofrenda as well. So just that welcoming, laying out of food, of water. There are the elements, the water, fire, air, and earth. That is explained both in the back of the book, but also with the items that the family is gathering for that ofrenda, for that offering.
Yes, you see the family, the little girl, where she's collecting all of these very important items that express, her love for her pet and her pet in general, her beloved dog that she has lost. And so in the back of the book, like you said, you do offer these suggestions. Can you just give us an idea of some of those items that we may look for if we're trying to create an ofrenda for a pet that we've lost, because it's not necessarily what's inside, but also what's outside, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So, so generally, I think that ofrendas, there are people who are like, oh no, these colors and this way. And an interesting thing about the book is that we talked about it a lot. Some ofrendas do not have pictures of the living on them. They will only have the person or animal who's passed away, or you'll have a covering over the living person. This isn't everyone. Usually the 4 elements, that's common everywhere. You want to have something that that person or that spirit enjoyed in life, right? So if they had a favorite snack or a hobby, right? So like my cat would have a little toy mouse or a box. Cats love playing with boxes and places to hide, right? Maybe a favorite toy for a dog. Things of that nature. Cempasúchil is always a big part of it. The marigold flowers, that's brought in from the old indigenous traditions, and the incense, the fire, which of course we have to be careful with if there's youngsters.
Yes.
I do want to point out something that you said, because it's become an interesting topic. You mentioned the little girl. So the model that Adriana used, the family that she used, it's a little boy in her danzante group. And so the little boy has long hair. He's from her native group. But it's totally cool. But it's come up multiple times where people will assume it's a young girl.
Interesting, because you don't say it's a little girl.
Yeah,
and
no.
you don't say it's a little boy.
Yeah, because it's written to it's written, see, now here's my writer voice in second person, right? Where you're saying you, and we're talking to the spirit who has passed.
Yes.
But yeah, it's come up, or people will ask, right? Is it a little boy or a little girl? And it's interesting because it's like, well, does it matter,
Right.
Because grief is grief and loss is loss. And so it's an unintended thing that has come up, but a good thing, especially as we explore some of those changing terms and dynamics.
Well, because now that you mention it, the character doesn't have a name in the book.
Right.
And so that was not intentional.
Well, it wasn't intentional as far as like, oh, let's illustrate a character where you can't really, that part was not intentional. But as far as writing it to the pet, yes, of course, that was but it is unusual in a picture book.
Interesting. Well, I did not pick up on that.
No,
but
that's okay.
That is just fascinating. And I just love that. That's really beautiful that has come from what you didn't set out to maybe create with a conversation, but it certainly has opened itself up to that. So I think that's wonderful. Going back to the story for just a second, because it is diverse. Like I said, it's not something I've seen very often. What has been the reaction from readers and just the book community in general?
Well, it's a brand new book, so it's only been out about 6 weeks now, but we're in our 3rd printing already. So that reaction has been we're really happy about that people are finding the book and bringing it into their homes. I do think it's special. I think it brings a little dose of medicine to families who might be grieving or might be, knowing that loss is going to come. And maybe they are just wanting to understand more about this cultural tradition, because even if it's not a pet that we've all lost someone, and they might want to see what an ofrenda looks like, whether it's for a pet or a human. But the little bit that I've shared it with audiences, I'll be honest, it's been a little tough because,
Really?
yeah, there's tears, and so the first time I shared a sneak peek with a school group, they had read our first 2 books, and I involve a lot of like levity and music and movement, and so we're all kind of lifted up, and it's like, do you want to take a look at our next book? And inevitably there's been at least one kid just in tears, or the librarian or the teacher.
I can appreciate that.
Yeah, it's a hard one. So I've been struggling a little bit with how to present that when I do present it to bigger audiences, as I will be in Tucson soon. How do I leave a little balm on their hearts, right?
Well, I think the most important thing probably is just reminding people that the celebration is really about honoring our loved ones in a joyous way.
Absolutely.
And that includes our pets.
Yes, and so in the book, we see the picture frames come alive, right? And we see the family experiencing the full range of emotion, from like missing them, but also like laughing and remembering those good times and the funny stories. And so I think Adriana did a beautiful job also showing that change in the book, and the pages brightening up and the spirit seeing all of this.
Yes, it's very obvious, and you both did such a wonderful job. Thank you so much for sharing that story with the world, because I think, when when I have to go through that situation, it's books like these that are going to help us get through it. So thank you so much.
Absolutely.
Yes. And I want to remind people that the book is called Remembering, and they can find it wherever books are sold.
Wherever books
Really
are
a pleasure
sold.
to meet you. Thank you so much.
It's been great talking to you.
Yes.
Thank you for having me.
I appreciate it. And that's our show for tonight. For Horizonte and Arizona PBS, I'm Catherine Anaya. Thank you so much for watching. Have a great night.